Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. My name's John Connors. I'm the host, and I'm also the founder of Connors Martial Arts. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts here in Norwood, Mass. In our podcast, we talk about ways for you to change your life for the better. If you get involved with a tribe or group that can help you, that's definitely the way to go. And I'm here with my co-host, Dan Robin. How you doing, Dan?
Good. How you doing, John?
And as always, Dan insists on talking about his travel that he's done. So did you travel
this week? I've gone nowhere and done nothing, which is
awesome.
Isn't that great for an inspirational podcast? Gone
Stay
nowhere,
home.
done nothing.
What is your message? Stay home.
Stay home. Don't do anything.
Well, I'm traveling next weekend. So next weekend, my son and Coach Cherney and Sean Newell and Tyler King and myself are going to California for the IBJJF No-Gi World Championships.
Right.
Yeah. It's very exciting.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I know you've been dedicating a lot of time and energy and effort into preparation.
I've been training pretty hard. Yeah, I have. I guess you call it, it's just tendonitis in my elbow. I guess it's commonly referred to as tennis elbow, and it's been killing me.
Yeah. Is that even, I was picturing the harder thing for you has been mentally. It seems like it's been taking a lot of your mental energy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I want to have a good performance. I'm training a lot. So, yeah, and it's so funny you should say that, Dan. I'm right at that point where you're a week or so away from the competition, and now you just want it to happen. You're just tired of all the preparation of the so-called grind for it. You're like, I just want to get this thing going. Let's go, man. So I'm definitely feeling that. Yeah.
And about the physical part, like you're saying, the tendonitis, I'm not sure how you avoid overtraining. I sometimes feel overtrained, and I'm like, I'm not even training that much. I'll be like, it's embarrassing. I'll be like waking up just feeling like really exhausted and tired. And it'll feel like, someone will say like, oh, maybe you're overtraining, and I'll feel like, yeah, I do feel that way. But then it'll come up, how much have you been training?
Well, I do this thing called, are you familiar with HRV?
No.
So it's called heart rate variability.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just a measure of your heart rate. It's a measure of the variability of sort of the amplitude of your heart wave. And if you have a more standard, or what am I trying to say, a more regular heartbeat, ba-bum, ba-bum, that'd be a lower variability. And a higher variability is if your heart's all over the place, like bump, 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 bump. And believe it or not, in general, the higher the variability indicates the more you're ready for stress. So the more rested your whole system is. And the lower the variability, it means your system's tired. So it's just like cocoon, you know what I mean? It's just like plodding along.
Right, but that must be within, a massive coronary probably has huge variability, right? So.
Well, I think they're talking, so they measure it. So one thing you can do is I have a little app, and I measure for 2.5 minutes in the morning. So for 2.5 minutes, it just tracks your heart rate and tracks the variability of your heart rate, and then gives you a score. And based on that, and based on, if you do it over, every day for several months, you have sort of a context in order to.
And if you get more fit, it gets more variability? Is that?
Theoretically, yep. If you think about your heart being like a boxer bouncing around on his toes, you know what I mean, shadow boxing, that's like the high variability. But it's not always that. It's not that simple. But at any rate, this app will tell you, a score of 1 to 10, how ready you are to stress your system that day. And, so if you're feeling good, so basically from 7 to 10, it'll give you a green sign and say, you look pretty good. You're ready to stress your system today. And then from, a 4 to 6, it'll say, you look like you may be in a state of overtraining or about to start overtraining. Maybe you should take an easy day. And if you're really screwed up, it gives you 1 to 3, like a red. Don't do anything today.
Have you gotten all these things?
I've gotten all of them. Yeah.
Do you feel, does it seem accurate? Like if you get a 2, do you feel like, yeah, I do feel terrible? Or
pretty much. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I can pretty much, when I look at what my heart rate is, because they show you as it's measuring it, I can start and I can see what the variability is for the most part. I get the idea that I'm okay. And for the most part, it's told me I'm okay. And I'm training really hard. So it might be really hard to overtrain. I don't know. But I've been doing that, but I don't know really how accurate it is, Dan. Like I said, I get this bad tendonitis, but you have this nagging feeling that you should always be doing more. So I think it's probably hard to overtrain,
And is your training, it's all jiu-jitsu? Are you doing
pretty much all jiu-jitsu, and I do one workout where I do some hill sprints once a week. And,
no strength and no weights and
no, I don't do any of that. I don't think it's necessary for this. I think that's something maybe you would do sort of off season. I do some push-ups and some pistol squats, some really slow kind of just bodybuilding type stuff in order just to feel good, but not a lot, no, because you're hitting your muscles so hard. I think when you grapple, anyways, it doesn't really make any sense to waste time doing any of that other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard work. Yeah, it's really hard.
So 2-a-days you're doing now? And
Pretty much 2-a-days almost every day. Some days only once a day. But I feel pretty prepared, so I feel good. I feel like if I continue to compete, I can't do it this way, though. It's too much. It takes up too much of my mind and my body. I don't have enough to do other things. But
Right.
it does make you start to wonder, when you're feeling like that grind, you start to think, why the hell am I doing this anyways,
But I always think, so we've talked before about, the mental side of competition
Yeah.
and different, and you've thought a lot about it.
Yeah.
And well, actually, just on the drive here, I was thinking about this in life in general, is that people tend to be too black and white, too 0-1 on things.
Absolutely.
Like, here's how you train.
Yeah.
And I always think like it's totally different for different people, right? Or
I agree.
So I missed, like we scheduled this whole podcast late so we could go in and train.
Right.
And then I didn't go in and train. But what happened was I got called because you'll see where it's coming back to the whole, what got me on this thought, that my daughter wanted to come home from school. She had a bad headache. And I have 3 kids through school, and I've never had to take a kid home from school, so I didn't know how to do it. I was
wow.
like, she was like texted me like, I want to come home, and I was like, what do you do? So I
From the local high school?
Yeah, from high school. So I texted back, go to the nurse,
Yeah.
and I'll come pick you up. So then I called in, and she goes, you'll see we're coming back in it. But I called in, and she said, the office was like, don't send her to the nurse. I was like, she's sick. Why do I, isn't that surprising, right? So I said, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Because the nurse has a rule that if the kid has a fever, they can go home. If they don't have a fever, she sends them back.
Huh.
Period.
Huh.
Like, it was like she has a 0-1 rule.
Huh.
And I was sort of like, if the kid's throwing up or bleeding and it was like anything else means rest or patch him up and send him back to class. So she was like, don't send her to the nurse. If you want her to go home and she doesn't have a fever, you have to bypass the nurse. And I was frustrated. I was like, that's ridiculous,
That is ridiculous.
But then
Wouldn't you think as a parent you could pull your kid out of school at any time that you wanted?
yeah, but I think I can, but it was sort of like you have to get around the nurse.
Huh.
So it was sort of
I don't like the sounds of that.
but the rules for the nurse, so that's what got me on this front. It was like they set it up so it was like, look, a lot of rules are set up that simply, right? Like, we don't want to leave.
I wonder why they set it up that way. Are too many kids leaving school claiming that they're sick? Is that what the idea is?
Probably, you can't have every kid coming in saying, I don't feel well, I want to go.
Yeah.
I would bet that, a huge percent, off the top of my head, 80% of the kids that come in there are ducking a test.
Did you?
Just,
right.
and just something.
Yeah.
So the nurse gets in her head to just send them back. But I was thinking these 0-1s are like always annoying. Like, what I mean is, this black and white. Like, this is better than that. Like, if you have this, do this. If you this, do this. And then I thought a lot of, now back to the jiu-jitsu and like prepping for a competition or anything to do with jiu-jitsu. A lot of it, or a podcast like this, a lot of it is like, here's what you need to do. And it's usually not quite right. It's usually, here's the best way to train. Here's the best way to prepare. You have to give advice, but at the same time, it depends on the person. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was thinking that a lot of this advice kind of stuff comes down to, as an individual out there, you have to just listen to a lot of it and just pick pick what you like, you know,
Probably.
pick what works for you,
Feels,
or try
yeah.
different things, or
Right.
And what I learned much as sort of the other side of this, late, like in my 40s, was learning if you don't like someone's advice, I used to just write them off immediately. You know, like you'd hear the first point they make, and they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and they'd be gone. You know what I mean? So something like meditation, I'd be like, I don't like meditation, gone. You know, like, and or you know, or,
And I don't like that guy who likes meditation.
yeah, and I don't want
He's
to hear
out.
anything he wants to say anymore
So
because
funny.
he's this meditating guy. And then, or Wim Hof, right? It's like, I'm not getting in the cold water, gone. You know, and like, so
Funny
and I
you
learned
should
to
say
just,
that.
I just learned to calm down and be like, all right, just listen to all of it. Don't write people off. Don't write, you know, don't, and you have to just take in a lot and see what works. But
Right. But people, that's nuanced, and people don't like nuanced. It
No, they
takes
don't
too
at
much
all.
brain energy. They want, put a label on it and let me hate it or love it. That's it.
And even giving advice, probably people would hate. People probably hate right now the advice I'm giving because
Yeah.
people want to hear
They want
authority.
certainty. Yeah.
Certainty and authority.
Yes.
So they want someone that, I mean, that's all the people that do really well in the world, right? The CEOs and the politicians, and it's people
Absolutely.
that portray certainty, and it's just not reality.
The more certain you are, the more success you'll have, whether you know what the hell you're talking about or not.
Yeah.
Sadly, that is definitely the case.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. That's a very famous concept. It's in a poem too. What is it? I can't bring it up, but it's something like that. That the best are filled with uncertainty, and the worst are totally confident. You know, that's the
I don't
gist
listen
of
to
it.
poets. But like, you know,
But you mentioned Wim Hof, so I
Yeah.
am doing Wim Hof every day, breathing. So I do 20 minutes of my Wim Hof breathing every day, and I write it down, so I'm getting it done. And then I end my showers with a cold water shower every day. And then I found this new gadget, so maybe this is helping me recover, called Muse. Have you heard of this thing?
not,
You put it on your head. It looks like a Star Trek something or other, almost like headphones. And
does it regrow hair? Is that what we're talking about? One of those?
I wish it did, man. My hair gets thinner every freaking day. It's so depressing.
Mine's staying the same pretty much. So.
Yeah, it used to stay the same for a while. I see it getting thinner every day, and I just think of, entropy. Like the whole universe is just decaying and falling apart, and I am too, and it's awful.
With the thing on your head.
But the thing on my head,
Yeah.
yeah, I hope it grows hair, but I don't think they don't claim that. At any rate, it's probably total nonsense. But you put it on, and it supposedly looks at your brain waves, somehow measures your brain waves, right? It's across your forehead, behind your ears, and then you go into a meditative state where you just focus on your breath, and you try to calm your mind by focusing on your breath. And when you get to a certain level of calm, you can hear little birds chirping. And if your mind gets too active, you hear rain and stormy. So it's like oscillates between rain and storm, and then like
Do
quiet.
you think
and
it
birds.
works? Like, does it feel like it works? It sounds
Well,
a little.
I'm getting more birds. I've been doing it for a couple of weeks now. So I don't know. Maybe they just program it to give you
Does
more
it do
birds.
like rains and
occasionally.
storms, and you're like, why can't I get the goddamn birds? And like, you start
Yeah.
getting more,
Get more
it
rain,
starts
yeah.
getting more rain and more.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
if
trying to
it's
think it
complete
through.
nonsense or
Probably
not.
it's too hard to read brain waves with something that costs what, you know what I mean? But I don't know, some kind of electrical, like it probably has some
Yeah.
really broad.
It's got like
sense,
a
or
big
or even
copper
like
band
or
that
like
goes
a
across your
temperature
forehead.
sensor, something that's a little simpler than they want to advertise. But there's probably
Maybe.
some kind of sensor that might be related to something.
I don't know. But it does have me sitting still for 10 minutes and focusing on
Yeah,
my
if
breath.
it's working,
so,
it's working.
Yeah. And I'm scoring more birds. And it's perfect for me. It gives you a numerical score, how you're doing, and you can look at how
Yeah.
the progress you're making and all this stuff. But, yeah, who knows? It's probably all
I'm
nonsense, right?
picturing putting it on just like lightning and thunder and just like, God damn, there's no
Shipwrecks and
Yeah.
screaming.
yeah, screaming.
I didn't know they had screaming on this thing. So I have been doing that. So maybe that's helping my recovery. So I don't know. Yeah.
So the physical, you're getting the cardio there, you're getting the mental thing there.
But what I really wanted to talk about, Dan, is just this concept of competition,
Yeah.
especially sports. It's so weird, right? We're going to invent some kooky rules and come together and compete.
Yeah.
And we love it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, professional sports are bigger than ever. They seem like they're only getting bigger. And this isn't professional, but it's still like a big deal. I'm flying all the way to California. You know, I'm training so hard to get ready for it, and then I'm going to go out there and compete. And
what sort of size crowd do you even know? Like, it would be?
Yeah, it's not so much of a, you know, it's mostly competitors and their families probably. Or
But is it
friends.
a madhouse, like 20 matches at a time? And
I think that's a good question, Dan. I think they may have like 10 or 12 mats going or something like that. Yeah. But it's pretty well organized.
because again, a lot of people listening will know this, but I guess a bunch won't, that there's these tournaments are daunting, right? They're sort of notoriously like off schedule, and they're notoriously
They can be. Yeah, these guys are they're like the official organization of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so they're on the ball. They're pretty much on time.
They're better. That's good.
Yeah, they're very professionally run.
Wrestling was the same way. It would be like, I remember I took my son to a wrestling match where I just did the math. You know, it was sort of like there's X number of competitors. It was like we are 1/4 of the way through, and it's been 4 hours. I was like, we are on a pace for 16 hours.
Yeah.
I was just doing the math and saying, we're on a pace to go to 4 a.m. It's not sustainable. It's not possible. And I even talked to the coach, like, what's happening? It's not nearly going to work.
Right.
And they just seemed to not be on it. And then they did some scramble at like 8:00 at night where they're like, okay, we're just going to go right to the final. Like they just sort of started cutting matches and doing all kinds of madhouse.
These guys have it together. Yeah. So they're pretty much down. I like it. And the competitors aren't allowed to say anything, which I think is kind of nice. Like you come out onto the mat and there's no talking. Like in the middle of the match, you can't say to the ref, hey ref, I thought I took him down. You can't talk. Can't talk to the other.
That's probably better, right?
I think it's way better. Yeah. Cuts down on a lot of nonsense, you know.
Has your experience, another complaint I've heard, this one, I've seen the madhouse with the scheduling, but has your experience been, questionable judging? You hear a lot of people, and I've never known how much is questionable judging versus people always think they did better than they did. You see that at all levels. You see every UFC decision, there's the losers going, what?
Right. There is a little bit of a reputation of a small Brazilian bias. So if the ref is Brazilian and the competitor is Brazilian and the other competitor is non-Brazilian, there may be a little bit there, which is natural, right? That's how the world kind of works, right? It's human nature, right? But nothing. It's pretty good. Yeah, I don't see anything flagrant really, So it's good. Yeah. But I just was thinking about why am I doing this, Dan? Why am I?
Yeah, why?
I'm like flying to California, getting a rental car, hotel, all of this stuff, just to do this. And I guess it's an experience, so I can look back and say, yeah, I went and did the World Championships, and it's fun to have a goal and apply yourself. Like my life is more focused. My weight is a certain weight. I got a competition weight, so I weigh myself every morning. So I feel engaged in life, and it feels great,
Yeah, that's what it was. There was a few different things you said in there, right? One was the experience, and you can't, that the clock's ticking on. You can't you can't just compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments forever,
Forever, right?
And then, but totally separate from that is the other effects it has on your life, like you said, of giving you motivation to do other things, to train all the time, to do your meditation, right? I bet you're doing all that stuff more than you ever did before, right?
Absolutely.
And you lost weight more than you have.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty fit.
Years,
my jiu-jitsu is better than ever. I'm fitter. Yeah, I haven't weighed 175 pounds. I don't know. It's like 20 years or something. Yeah, definitely. 15 years ago, maybe, yeah.
And then there's a third thing, right? Or I don't know if we've said two things, but roughly a third thing, which is the actual challenging yourself. Right, you enjoy that, right? I mean, you just
I've been thinking about this. I've come up with the grand concept of life, and the universe and everything. Yeah, because I might.
No, that was coming.
Yeah. Well, of course, I have a T-shirt now that's out. I didn't bring it in. I'll bring it in next time. It says "Prepare right, compete right," and I never prepare for the podcast. Of course, don't take my advice. But it's just an idea. I was just thinking about how, you could look at the human species and all of life as this kind of push forward. You know what I mean? We want our kids to be better than us, and you know, we want them to look better. And I think they do look better and be smarter than us. And it seems like that's what's happening. You know what I mean? So like, if you look at the grand scheme, it's all about, you know, humans and every other animal just evolving and getting better and better every generation, like moving in a certain direction. You know what I mean? Yeah. And my role as an individual in that grand scheme is to, I think you look at it a couple ways. One is to maximize my own potential. So if I do that, I'm moving the ball forward. And then being a good parent is another way to do it, like help my children maximize themselves, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like, you ever see those Spartan races where they have this cockamamie thing at the end where it's like this slippery slope and people form a human ladder and help each other up? So basically, we're this human ladder, and we're helping the next generation up. Yeah. I think. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think. Well, there's two. Again, there was two parts. One is moving the kids up the ladder.
Right.
Is very powerful because then, I mean, I think that can be huge because you can feel like no matter what you did or didn't do in your life, if you have happy, successful kids, you're like,
that's a
I
success.
won.
Yeah. You can check that
in
box
a way,
off.
I won. But that could be the box.
Yeah.
You know, it could be like whatever else. You could be like, I went to prison, but I got out and I got my kids happy and I got, you know.
I think so. I look at my parents and I think they just focused on us. So their idea was like, well, we're not really, quote unquote, going anywhere, but we're going to create, you know, this house, and we're going to have a steady job and food, and we're going to get our kids playing sports and involved in education and support them and push them in education as far as we can in order to sort of move the whole thing forward, move the ball forward, you know?
Right. But then the flip side is for the individual, for yourself. I mean, you're not, so now back to this competition, this is not really for
but if I think about it, if I'm, you know, I guess I'm thinking really philosophically, maybe, I don't know what the right word is, but if I'm trying to maximize myself, then I'm theoretically somehow doing my job as my role in the universe of like moving everything forward, you know?
Right.
Or one of my jobs, yeah.
And there's actually another motivation that's probably big for a lot of people and not so much for you. And we've talked a little bit about it, which is, you know, bragging. You know, it's basically like I won, and, you know, for your peers and your gym and everyone else saying, look, I won.
There's
you know?
some probably small practical benefit of getting some, you know,
but you as
glory.
as a gym owner also, we talked a little bit about, you get to say, oh, I did. If you do well, you get to say, oh, I did well at this competition.
Yeah.
But you were saying it's probably not a huge.
I think
benefit,
it doesn't move
right?
the needle hardly at all, man. Yeah. But you feel
like
better.
How many people coming through that door are sort of looking up your qualifications and your win? Probably not many.
Not many.
Or how many would even know what it meant if you
Probably
said, I
not
won
a
this
lot.
thing, you know?
Not worth all the energy you'd put into winning it. That's for sure. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Not even close. But I think you do feel better. You know, if a person has a goal and they create a plan and they conscientiously follow that plan, I think you feel better about yourself. You know, you have that's where confidence comes from. Like you can follow through. You do what you say you're going to do.
So this is we've touched on this a bunch of times, but this is also where it gets really tricky, where ideally you can get to a point where, I'm not sure if you're at this point, where you get all the positive feedback, all the positive results from doing this that we're talking about.
Yeah.
The thing is, with the competition, there's inherently a risk, right? Like something can go terribly wrong, you know, right?
What do you mean?
You could jump in and the guy jumps a tricky guillotine on you, and you're like, I lost in 1 second. Yeah, like so there could be a terrible loss, right? Like
right.
Like,
well, I think that's why
you can lose, or even either way, lose, or, you know, just picture MMA, which we talk about a lot. You can walk up and get knocked out and be like, that was just a disaster, right? Like,
well, I think that's why when we have the focus on preparation and competing, you mitigate the loss, because you can't control the results. But I can control that I follow my own plan, the plan that I constructed for myself, which you probably have to change, like you said. Like all of a sudden you don't feel good one day. The plan was to run today, but I don't think it's going to help me, so I'm going to take today off. So if I focus on my process to a certain degree, that takes a sting out of not getting the result that you want, you know. So if I go out there and I do get submitted right away, something like that, I would be disappointed, but I'm not going to be devastated because, like I said, I'm already so much better than I was, and I put in all this effort and followed my plan, so I feel really good about that.
Because again, this is the key. Because I've also heard people talk about it as they're like, I'm a kind of person who likes high risk, high risk. Like big highs, big lows. And that's how they see the competition. But I guess what I'm saying, or what you're saying, is that you can get yourself in a better spot where you can be like, I basically can get the highs of it and not really so much the big lows. It doesn't have to. You don't have to be like,
well, when
I can
look
have
at this,
all the glory or the devastating pain. It could be
Right.
like I get the glory and not really have the devastating pain potentially.
I think so. If I hadn't done the tournament in September, I wouldn't be where I am today, too. So I'm better positioned to perform better now than I was back in June or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you do improve your capabilities, too. That's certainly the case. And then when I bring it back philosophically, this idea of like just doing my part, you know what I mean, in that sort of human ladder of moving the universe and progress forward, then you don't have to win every event that you enter. As long as you're doing your part, that's all that matters. So me preparing as best as I can and getting in there and competing as best as I can, that means I did my part,
Right. And related back to if I guess it's the central point of the podcast, if there is one, I don't know, but it's that get out there and try it, because I think we've talked about it before. People overweight the potential negatives, right? So you can end up
Right.
in a spot mentally where you're like, I'm not going to do anything, including even going to go train at all. I'm never going to walk through that door. I'm never going to go.
Well, the other
any of
thing
these things
I've been thinking, Dan, is sports is really arbitrarily binary, like you're talking about, like a winner and a loser. And life really isn't like that. You know what I mean? Like if I have some kind of business, a restaurant, there's not one winner of the restaurant and one loser of a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so you can express yourself and you can contribute in ways that aren't this complete winner-loss scenario, When was the last time you were in a sort of sporting competitive situation? Do you remember?
I thought about that because
Yeah.
I can't even remember. Like I was thinking about it. So for a while now, I've been like suburban dad, right?
Yep.
Prior to that was like graduate school. Prior to that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't even know. High school, like
A pool game or game of darts or something?
Well, yeah, that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, I'm on the mat all the time too. But
Right,
it's sort of
right.
like, but actual. I was thinking, when was I in a competition or? I don't know.
Yeah.
Forever. I was probably a kid.
I'm thinking you don't really need to do it to compete in that format. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think a person has to do that. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. It's very exciting. And like, I guess that's it. The excitement of the glory of winning and the excitement of the potential pain of losing is so stimulating that it can drive somebody to work their process much harder than they would otherwise,
Right. But it's sort of funny you say that because you're in the middle of doing it.
Yeah.
And you're making the point. You're saying like, I don't think everyone needs to do it, or.
I totally think that way. Yeah. I think so. And I think as individuals, we should choose whatever our competition is,
Yeah, I think, but I've seen it go too far the other way. So you're going to compete at this national level, worlds, whatever it is.
It's called the World Championships. Yeah.
So, and some of the people in your bracket are not from
I think
the US, are they?
it's a small bracket, of course, because the age group. One guy I think is from Brazil, and the other guys are American.
So it's international.
Yeah.
But take it to the other side. I know we all know lots of people, so a lot more common that, for example, they get out of shape around our age, say,
Yeah.
and they're. So I keep saying, like, people don't want to walk into a MMA gym, but much less than that, people don't even want to get on a treadmill, because they're like, I just, So it's I see it as the same thought process where you sort of feel like I'm going to be so out of shape, I can't even run.
Well, yeah,
half a mile.
I think
they just let it go, and that's so there is that, where you can go too far the other way. So you're saying, on one end,
I think it's not even going too far the other way. I think the baseline human nature is move toward pleasure, cookies and ice cream, away from pain, and
treadmill,
and conserve energy.
Yeah.
So, why does a human animal spend energy? It's for survival or reproduction. So if you don't have some pressure, you're not going to spend any energy, right? So,
yeah.
So that's why I guess competitions like this are good. It just stimulates you to spend some energy and do something.
Right. And like we keep talking about, it depends on the individual. Some people just really thrive on that excitement, the adrenaline, so people like it, or the excitement. And
right.
Some people just don't like it. They don't want it. They don't.
Everyone has born with a different nervous system. I've thought about this a lot, and unfortunately for men, I think they start to identify their character with their nervous system. You know what I mean? Right. So if they're afraid of heights or something, I'm a coward or whatever the problem is. And it's like, no, you just have a nervous system that is different than somebody else, Did you see that movie Free Solo about
I still haven't seen it. No.
Did we talk about it in another podcast?
No, I know what it is, though.
So this guy, Alex Honnold, I think his name is. Yeah, he climbed El Capitan 3,000 feet with no ropes, all by himself, which is just remarkable. But he has a unique nervous system. They put him in an MRI, and they showed him images that should stimulate his amygdala, and it didn't really stimulate his amygdala. So he has a nervous system.
Like things don't make him, like no fear response or no...
Pretty much, yeah. I'm sure it's not absolute, but he probably experiences 1% of the fear that you and I experience. So that makes it a heck of a lot easier to do these scary things. Not to take away from what he did. It's just what he did is, once in humanity, you have to imagine he's the only person in the history of Homo sapiens that did what he just did. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it seemed crazy. Although a lot of these things have a way of, 20 years from now, there'll be 20 more people that did it, or...
Yeah.
That usually seems
that's
like once
the whole
the
thing
door's
about
open,
pushing the whole species in the universe forward. Like Alex Honnold did that. So you're right. Because he did it, there's probably going to be 20 people that will also do it. And somebody will do it like upside down or something like that, right? Completely naked or something crazy.
So I have a question about after the competition. So all this been prep. Do you ever have like a letdown? Like, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's common.
Like even if you win, we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel, what is it more like? Less, you don't have a focus now, or directionless.
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, Tyson Fury was talking about that on the Joe Rogan podcast after he beat Klitschko for the title. He kind of spun into depression and drug abuse and almost killed himself. I think that definitely can happen. What I'm doing isn't at that level, so it's not as much. But after the Pan Ams, I felt a little down. After it was done. But then I felt good. I was like, oh yeah, I won.
Yeah.
So they really can't take that away from me. So I'll no matter if I never win another match in my life, or if I get tapped every time I step on the mat, I'm still that 2018 no-gi black belt Master 5 champion. So I'm like,
and now with
that's
the
in
internet,
the bank.
Now that it's on the internet as part of history, right? Like it'll never vanish.
Yeah. So when I thought of that, Dan, I felt good. I started walking a little taller and more upright, and it felt good. Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be interesting after this competition. Yeah, I will have to set some other goal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you have an actual strategy for dealing with it, like preparation for dealing with it, like set another goal when you get back?
Yeah, I got to set another goal. But I think it may not be jiu-jitsu. I may
El
try
Capitan,
to do something
maybe?
different. I'm thinking
free solo.
I'm thinking the Blue Hills free solo.
Although I saw it, like, again, I knew your head was in a different place when we had I forget blanking on his name now. Talk about the swimming.
Craig Lewin.
Craig.
Yeah,
Craig Lewin. And you were like, oh, I don't, and you're not a great swimmer, right? And you were like, I could see wanting to do that too, push myself. And I was like, I am not going to ever do that.
Craig, for you folks that didn't listen to it, go listen to that episode. He swam the Catalina Channel.
Yeah.
It took him 11 hours. What is it, like 20 miles or something? I forget what he said.
Yeah.
It's incredibly far.
And somehow this should have been obvious, but it was just that one last piece in my head of picturing it is that there's shipping lanes that they swim through. And it was like, so they do it at, the dead of night.
Yeah.
There's something about like, I assume 20 miles means you can't even see the land.
I think for a part of it you can't. Yeah.
Right. So you're just in the
Yeah,
middle
that's
of the
far.
ocean in the pitch dark.
That sounds awful.
And there's no
Terrifying.
lights around, nothing's lighting it up, right?
Yeah.
From the moon. But then, I don't know, like
That's
just at some
scary.
deep level. And I even understand odds. I understand your odds are fine that you're not going to get killed by a shark. But
Right.
I don't know.
Here's the other part that's intimidating about it. You have to put an immense amount of hours in to prepare for that. It's crazy. I started thinking about all the hours he put in week after week after week. That's a lifetime you're putting in. That's a full-time job. So I probably won't do that.
You think you're putting in a lot of hours for this, right?
But not as many as that.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think you
yeah.
can't
No.
grapple as long as you can
No.
swim, right? Like it's
Definitely
impossible.
not. Yeah.
But the other thing mentally, and I think this has to help, like Craig must have this very deeply, although a lot of guys have it around the gym, which is I see it just on running, or the treadmill's a good, like the treadmill's a better example, because like running on the street, you can alter, if you're a little tired, you can slow down a little.
Oh, right.
But the treadmill can really get in my head where if it starts to hurt and you've got a while to go. And that's what he was saying for the swimming, where it was like he was in real pain. I think he said his shoulder, and he had, I don't even remember, 4 hours to go, or, something like this. Or it was hour number 2 that the pain was really bad. And mentally to think I've got all this in front of me, it really it must rewire your brain to deal with it, to push through it. Because for me, it's just the treadmill, and it'll just be like, oh man, if you're going to run 5 miles and you're at mile 2 and it's just a little too fast for you, like it's, like for me at mile 2, it's starting to really hurt. You can almost get like a fear response.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that, where you almost feel like, I don't know if I can, how can I?
You get an irrational response, right?
Yeah. It's almost like not almost a panic, but
Yeah.
lower level than that, where you sort of feel, I can't take it. And then for me, obviously you could just get off the treadmill, but I feel like I know I'm not going to get off. And that's what makes me like get nervous.
There's probably
I sort of
fear
look
of
at
getting off too, because you're somehow going to lose some status by whoever sees you jump off your thing.
or even myself, or I'll just feel like, look, I know I'm not going to get off, and it already hurts. This is almost, I can't imagine how bad this is going to hurt, and usually it doesn't actually hurt as badly as you think. But I think there's some value in pushing through that in general.
Well, I think dread is so much worse than fear. Dread is it's a multiplier of fear. So you're dreading, oh, my shoulders hurt. I get 11 more hours of this.
Yeah.
That's worse than the shoulder hurting. Far worse. Just that dread. It just takes the pain and the fear and multiplies it, I think. Yeah. I don't know what the answer for that is, but I try to avoid dread as much as possible. Sometimes if I catch myself dreading something, and then I try to flip it on its head and say, yeah, that's good. That's what I want. That'll make the challenge better. And then I envision the worst case scenario and me just embracing it and enthusiastically going into it. And then that kind of gets rid of the dread.
That's actually, I hadn't thought about dread before.
Dread is awful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but because we've talked about before about that I go on these hikes in the mountains sometimes, and I almost never have like a fear or feeling like I can't go on. It's more a dread, like you're saying, where I feel not that bad, but how am I going to be in another 5 miles? Like
dread is like future pain or something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's worse.
And you're right, it is worse, because I've never. So hiking or even on the treadmill, I've never reached a point which is, this is such agony. It's always like fear that it's going to be agony, or fear that it's going to be unbearable.
Right.
Or like, I'm not going to be able, I'm just going to collapse at the side of the trail because I'm not going to be able to go on. And then
it's almost an open look. Yeah. Your imagination just can expand to take whatever that pain is and make it almost infinite,
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, pain is your nerves are sending a signal to your brain that there's something destructive happening or unhealthy happening. And I think if you just have pain, if you just focused on that, you can start to deal with it, right? You can start to mitigate it a little bit.
Yeah.
But that future pain, that dread, that just expands infinitely. That's just awful.
And I've said before, there's a lot of dread out there. And dread's such a worthless thing in that
it's friggin' worthless, right?
Yeah, a lot of times, or at least in my experience, you have people dreading things all the time that don't happen.
Yeah.
So you think, you had legit unhappiness in your life over something that didn't happen.
That never happened.
And that's people do that constantly, right?
Constantly.
People are constantly unhappy about things that never even
Happen,
right? That never, not like fantasy things.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
And that's why animals don't have dread, right? Like they don't
I don't think
imagine things that can happen.
Yeah.
It's a uniquely human thing that you can actually you could ruin your life dreading things that never happen.
Yeah.
And of course it's easier. It's easy to say. So stop doing that. But
Stop it.
stop doing that. Yeah, that's our advice. So stop that.
Stop dreading things.
And go to a gym.
I think I've spent a lot of my life dreading things, and I'm trying to get wiser about it now. And when I sense myself dreading something, I try to really confront it and embrace it. And
it's imagination
that way.
We talked about it in not even athletic context before, where like I had to make a phone call, right? Like a business phone call. I was just talking to you about this, and I sort of felt it wasn't dread's a bit extreme, but it was that idea of going,
Well, here's the thing, Dan, to interrupt you. Sometimes it can be a tiny little thing, and you have a little bit of dread, and then it ends up expanding and becoming like a big deal, and it's just this dopey little thing that you had to do.
Well, I think it's worse if you have some people seem to don't imagine things as much, but I do. And so it becomes, what if I call, like just a business call?
Right.
What if I call and I can have whole conversations in my head with like that are awkward and
Right.
And then I could, like this happened a week ago, where then I called the guy. I didn't want to call. I put it off. And I called the guy, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, happy to help you." And it was the most easiest conversation. And I was thinking I had actual unhappiness over nothing, over something that never occurred.
A certain amount of how much time do you think did you spend dreading that?
Yeah,
I mean, it came and went, but it probably was like an hour or something over several days, which is just insane, right?
Right, but when bring it back to the gym, we talked about a lot of people coming into something like a jiu-jitsu gym or an MMA gym. Your mind can start thinking, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if, and you're dreading all these things, and none of it even happens, and you brought yourself unhappiness over nothing.
That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, though. It's a little laboratory for you to experiment and tinker around with such things, right? Because there's really no actual consequences. If I go in there and some white belt chokes me unconscious, it's really not that meaningful. But it feels like it sometimes, right?
There's no real impact on your life.
That's what I've been doing recently, Dan. So this isn't going to air till after I compete. So I'm not giving away any secrets. But I really want to score my takedown, okay? And I'm going to be shooting in on the guy like a single leg takedown. And sometimes when you shoot in, somebody grabs your neck or they sprawl on you and uncomfortable things happen. And what can happen in the training hall is you start to become more and more conservative and a little hesitant to shoot, which is just a killer. And it's a similar thing, like you're dreading a negative result. So what I've been trying to do lately is just be unrelentless with my shooting and welcome all the negative results. Because any negative result I get here in the training camp, and if I can work my way out of it where I don't officially lose points or anything or get submitted, then if I have as many of those negative experiences as possible in training, it's just going to give me that much more confidence in the competition that, like, I've had every negative thing happen. You know what I mean? I've shot in and got, kneed in the head, or I got sprawled on, or I got choked or whatever, and I still came out on the other side. So I've been trying to use that to focus my training, and
right.
inform.
So if
my
it
training.
happens, you don't freeze up or think.
Well, I want to go out there and be super aggressive. Like, I don't want to be hesitant at all. And I think the way to get super aggressive is to have as many positive and negative experiences as possible crammed into my training in as short a time as possible.
And in jiu-jitsu, again, it applies to a lot of things, a lot of athletics, and maybe a lot of other things as well. But I hesitate all the time.
Right.
And I think it's a killer.
Kills your performance.
Yeah, all the time. I'm in a position and I think, wait a second, and then something bad happens. Or someone sticks an arm up and I think, I could probably armbar that, and then they pull it in, and that hesitancy is a killer, right?
Definitely, yeah. So I've been doing this really difficult hill workout every Sundays. I'm going to do the last one will be this Sunday. And John Parson, I don't know if you know him. He used to train with us, and his family moved down to Connecticut, so he trains down there. But he pops in every once in a while. He's a salesman, and he travels. And he was a really good runner in college, like a high-level runner. Yeah. So he gave me some technical techniques for running a hill, which helped me when I went because it's really hard workout. But then he gave me a tip that I guess his coach gave him. He said his coach said, hill workouts should never be looked at as agonizing. Look at them as an opportunity to get stronger, faster, fitter, lighter, whatever. And that little shift of perspective made a big difference to me, because I have been doing them for the last several weeks with this idea of I'm embracing the grind and this is going to suck and I don't care. I'm just going to grit my way through it. And that just wears on you psychologically. And you don't even run as hard, because you're anticipating the pain, and it's going to be painful. So then I was like, opportunity, it made a big difference. And then I brought that attitude into the gym where like, I'm going to go with this guy. This guy's tough. This is going to be hard. No. This is an opportunity for me to figure out my weaknesses and my holes in this type of thing.
It's funny because it's in contrast to the whole embrace the grind.
Right.
And embrace the grind is probably the most common thing I've heard.
We've been hearing that a lot lately, right?
Yeah. And you're saying that's maybe not quite right. And again, sometimes it is. Sometimes it depends on who and depends on the situation. But It's interesting to hear that maybe try something else. Maybe embrace the grind. Because I hadn't thought about it either, but embrace the grind means this is going to be a grind, right? Like this is going to...
It implies it's going to be a grind. It's going to suck. Yeah. Where maybe I put in the same amount of effort and I get the same resistance and I feel the same physical discomfort and pain, but I'm looking at it as an opportunity. Then I can figure out, where I'm getting better, what I need to do to get better. And I'm also going to be less reluctant, so I'm just going to go right into it. Where if you're embracing the grind, maybe you're like, well, I got to warm up a little bit more. You may end up shortening the time that you're actually embracing the grind because you're considering it such a grind, So opportunity is the catchphrase lately.
So do you have any change for your last week, the final week of preparation?
Well, we're flying out there Thursday, so I don't think so. I think I'll just train.
You need to rest a few days before?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how I feel.
I'm fine. We've said this with age. The big difference with age is recovery time, right? Like I can't, like you couldn't go super hard the day before you compete. Now you wouldn't be totally recovered.
Maybe not. Yeah. But I'll just play it by ear. Like you said, it's all individualized, right? See how I feel.
Yeah. Like you said, by the time this airs, it'll all be over.
Yeah, it'll be good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You'll be on to a new goal.
I'll be on to a new goal. Yeah. We'll see what it is. I have no idea.
Yeah, by the time this airs, you'll be halfway up El Capitan, probably.
Embracing the El Capitan grind.
Yeah.
Going, how did I let Dan talk me into this?
What the hell am I doing up here?
Well, Dan, I think that's about wraps it up. What do you think?
Yeah, we're about there. Yeah.
Have anything to add or anything to ask?
No, we're good.
No, we're good. Always great to talk to you, man. And folks, thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please share it on Facebook or whatever. Tell your friends to listen to us. Give us a review. We have 3 reviews on iTunes. So if you've been listening, just take 2 minutes, please. Give us a little review.
Good review.
A good review, yeah. We're not supposed to say give us a 5-star review, but that would be really
That's like
cool.
The car dealerships. Like,
it.
Before we ask for your review, is it going to be good?
Is that what they do?
Yeah. They're like,
well, I got a car recently. The guy said, they're going to send you a survey. And he goes, here's the thing. We're a luxury car company. If I don't get 5 stars, it's not good.
Yeah. That's what they all do now. Look, we consider anything below 5 stars as a fail.
Huh.
So it's like, okay, so, I mean, it's such a worthless thing. Yeah. And I think online they do it like they start with the stars. So if you don't put in 5, you don't get the follow-up. Like it's like computerized. Like
they don't even ask you any questions.
Yeah. If you put in 5 stars, it goes, why don't you talk more about your experience? If you put in 4 or 3, they'll thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your feedback.
Well, we won't do that. We'll take any feedback you have for us. Okay, that's it. We'll talk to you next week.